We're building something here, Detective. We're building it from scratch. All the pieces matter.
In Season 3, Episode 3, Bunk Moreland investigates the aftermath of the shootout between Omar Little's crew and the Barksdale crew. And after he examines the dead body of one of Omar's people, he notices just off the street a group of children playing, or to put it more accurately, reenacting the shootout they had obviously witnessed from afar. One of the boys shouts out that it's his turn to play the role of Omar, and shockingly that boy is no other than Kennard, the same character who in the final season actually goes on to kill Omar. As the next time Kennard saw Mr. Little, he was outraged to find out that his idol, whom he clearly thought was some badass gunslinger, was actually just
gimpy as a motherfucker.
The majority of The Wire's central storyline in Season 3 shares many similarities to that of the real-life America vs Iraq war storyline. Firstly, the major conflict of the season, that being the war between Avon and Marlowe, was birthed after the destruction of a pair of twin towers. After the death of Stringer Bell, Slim Charles gives his speech about fighting on a lie. On The Wire, it's a lie that Marlowe was the one who killed Stringer Bell, and in the case of the Iraq War, it's a lie that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, both of which were untrue, yet Avon, same as America, still fought on that lie anyhow. After the police arrested Avon, a power vacuum emerged in West Baltimore. However, it was quickly filled by a far more dangerous figure in Marlowe. Same as how in Iraq, once the Americans defeated Saddam Hussein, Saddam's absence led to the rise of a far more dangerous group in Al-Qaeda. Point being that after the current leaders were taken down, the regions they ruled over became far more violent. The final episode of the season is titled Mission Accomplished, which is an obvious reference to the infamous photo of George W. Bush standing in front of the Mission Accomplished banner. And how could I forget the most obvious reference, being that the drugs in this season are named WMD.
I hear the WMD is the bomb. WMD, bro.
In Season 4, Episode 1, we hear a radio commercial for Thomas Carcetti's mayoral campaign. And in that commercial he talks about how he's in opposition to Andy Krocek's development over the Port of Baltimore. That development of course being the condominiums Frank Sobotka was so against in Season 2, seeing as though the condos were competing for space with the grain pier Frank was so desperately lobbying for. In Season 5 however, Carcetti cuts a red ribbon commencing the construction of Krocek's condos. And this is the scene where Nick Sobotka makes his reappearance and heckles the mayor, subtly reminding us how far from grace Carcetti has fallen since the beginning of Season 4. In the very first episode of the show, D'Angelo is trying to talk business in Weebay's car. And needing to remind D'Angelo of the rules, Weebay pulls over and the two exit the vehicle. They stand outside of a fried chicken joint and Bay forces Dee to recite the rule regarding not talking in the car. As he does so, we can see that Weebay is standing beneath a sign which reads burger, implying that Weebay is the real deal. He's beefy, built for this game. D'Angelo, however, is standing beneath a sign which reads chicken, implying the total opposite. He's weak, and as we'll soon find out, not built for this game. In Season 3, Episode 11, when Mayor Royce is trying to figure out a way to keep Bunny Colvin's Amsterdam afloat, one of the people in his administration tells Royce that if he keeps this up, he'll be labelled the most dangerous man in America. And the character who tells Royce this is played by real-life former Baltimore Mayor Kurt Schmoke, who in the 90s was actually labelled the most dangerous man in America for his, at the time, controversial stance on the drug war.
I really think that you're onto something here, Clarence, but if you keep it up, before you know it, they'll be calling you the most dangerous man in America.
Over the course of the show's 5 seasons, the Baltimore Police Department and the entirety of the officers in it only ever fire 3 gunshots, all 3 of which come from Officer Presbalewski's gun. The first shot comes in Season 1, Episode 2, when Prez accidentally shoots a wall in the office of the Major Crimes Unit. The second comes later on in the same episode, when Prez, after taking a kid's eye out, returns fire at somebody retaliating up in the towers. And the final shot comes in Season 3, Episode 9, when Presbalewski accidentally kills a plainclothed officer. To point out important drug dealers to the Major Crimes Unit, Bubbles would dress them up in a red hat, signalling to whichever officer taking pictures from afar that this is the target. Later on in the show, developer Andy Krawcheck does exactly this but with a hard hat. He makes Stringer Bell wear a red hard hat to signal to other contractors that Bell is the target of a con he and Clay Davis are running. Andy also tries to make Avon Barksdale wear the same coloured hat. However, Avon, possessing the ability to sniff out a con job, refuses to wear it.
He needs to wear that hat when he's on site. Code, you know?
In Season 5, Episode 7, when Clay Davis takes a stand and attempts to explain just where the hell all his money is going, he makes a sly comment to Senator Bond, the man prosecuting him, and he refers to Bond as O. Bonder, which was Clay's way of drawing a comparison between Senator Bond and former United States President Barack Obama, who in 2006, around the same time Season 5 was being filmed, was looked at by a few as basically being half white, seen as though his affluence, education and upbringing wasn't at all similar to that of the average African American during that period. And Clay calling Senator Bondo Bonder was his way of saying that Mr. Bond has abandoned the black community, and that he doesn't know what Clay and other African Americans go through living in Baltimore.
45 inches of Clay Davis playing not just the race card but the whole deck coming at you.
Season 2, Episode 3 is the first episode where we get to see Darnett cheat on D'Angelo with Stringer Bell. However, there's a moment as early as Season 1, Episode 2, which hints at the possibility of Stringer and Darnett having been a fling since before even the show's pilot. As in this moment, Stringer outright asks Darnett to give him a twirl, and at first she offers Stringer a dirty look. However, she then eyeballs him as if to say, actually, I might take you up on that offer. Now this could just be the two acknowledging that they have the hots for one another, but choosing not to act on it whilst D'Angelo is still in the picture. But let me know your thoughts on this one down in the comments section. Did you pay much attention to this interaction on your first watch through? And if so, what was your opinion on it? In Season 4, Episode 11, Carcetti runs around the city telling all the public works about the issues that need fixing. However, he doesn't give any specifics as he wants them all to solve everything they can, in the hopes that they'll eventually solve his issue. And one of them issues was that of an abandoned car. Now whilst they don't tow the car Mayor Carcetti was referring to, they do wound up towing Ziggy Sobodka's burnt Camaro, that had seemingly just been chilling in the streets since Season 2.
Fuck you!
In Season 4, Episode 5, Chris Partlow and Snoop Pearson approach Michael Lee in a dark alley, as they want to offer Mike a job working as a soldier under Marlowe. Chris Partlow tells Michael's friends to move along as they want to talk to Mike alone. As they leave, Naaman Bryce makes a comment to Snoop Pearson about her sister being in his class at school.
Oh Snoop, your sister in my class.
Fuck you high or something, nigga?
4 episodes later in Season 4, Episode 9, we see a child that looks shockingly similar to Snoop sitting in the front row of Presbalewski's maths class. Could this be Snoop Pearson's sister? Or could Naaman have just been lying in an effort to save Michael?
Man, good looking out. Yeah. I thought this was
I know.
In Season 4, Episode 13, Mayor Carcetti travels to Annapolis to request state funding from the Republican governor, as he needs upwards of $50 million to save the city's school system. However, the governor ignores Carcetti and keeps him waiting for upwards of 2 hours, with his assistant winding Carcetti up by telling him that the governor will be ready any minute now. Carcetti finally snaps and makes his way out the building. However, before he can leave, he's stopped by a security guard who informs Carcetti that the governor is now ready to see him. And that security guard is played by Robert Ehrlich, who was the former governor of Maryland from 2003 to 2007. And Robert, during his time as governor, played a similar game on the real-life mayor of Baltimore at the time, Martin O'Malley, who Carcetti's character was actually based on, and who, similar to Carcetti, was humiliated by the governor when looking for a way to bail out his school system. Bunny Culvin and Stringer Bell were actually both parallels of one another in Season 3, and their storylines were somewhat identical. They both attempt to go against the grain and come up with a new system to combat the drug war, Bunny Amsterdam and Stringer the Co-op. They both lecture their most trusted subordinates on what it means to be a soldier. Bunny lectures Carver and Stringer lectures Bodie. They both send those same subordinates to try and reason with Marlowe Stanfield, who wanted nothing to do with their new system. And Stringer and Culvin's final words before their execution were both identical to one another.
Well, get on with it, motherfucker. Get on with it, motherfucker. Excuse me, Major?
Multiple times throughout the show, Stringer Bell orders people to lock the door.
Hey, yo, lock that door. Hey, yo, lock that door. Lock that door. Yo, you lock that door, right? Shut the door. Shut the door.
However, in his final moments when he's trying to escape the warehouse from Omar and Mouzone, the one time he wants a door unlocked, all the doors he tries are locked. Now my interpretation of this is that Stringer wanted so badly to escape from the street that he would lock himself into whichever building he was in so that he could be as far away from the streets as possible. Ironically, however, the one time he needed to get to the street, it was blocked to him. Point being that Stringer Bell had no real chance when it came to escaping the life he was born into, no matter how hard he tried to seal himself away from it. As D'Angelo says in Season 2,
it's like you can change up, right? You can say you somebody new, you can give yourself a whole new story. But what came first is who you really are. And what happened before is what really happened.
In Season 5, Episode 4, McNulty's wandering around a homeless camp pretending to work his imaginary serial killer, and he stumbles across a homeless man and his dog. McNulty asks the man if his dog's a biter, to which the man replies,
Got teeth, don't he?
The homeless man is actually Johnny 50 from Season 2, who was one of the stevedores working under Frank Sobotka at the port. 3 seasons later, however, and he's homeless living under the freeway. A harsh reminder that the situation at the docks has only gotten worse with Frank Sobotka gone.
Son of a bitch drinks 53 beers on his 25th birthday. So as to be, what do you call it? Poetical. We rounded it off.